I can't believe we're actually analyzing this. All right, but I think Zuckerberg has all of a sudden we're
40-inch reach,
all of a sudden we're Cosell and Jim Lampley having this, and Sugar Ray Leonard actually discussing this. But anyway, so this may
how would you ensure this?
Right. I'm sure each of them.
One of them goes in there and turns out to be Rocky Marciano and drops the other, breaks his jaw or gives him brain damage. How do you ensure it? This is both men are billionaires.
Right. I mean, again, I can't believe we're talking about this, but yeah, if Zuckerberg does real damage to Musk, is he both boastful but also feeling bad because he's then hurt our, space program? Yeah. So I don't know. I would expect that this peters out at some point and they decide, let's just make a big donation to charity and call it good. But if they do get in the ring, goodness gracious, the attention that will get is going to be bananas.
Okay. It just sounds like they're just imitating, 1960s wrestlers, with the big talk, what I'm gorgeous, George, we'll see. But just when you think things can't get sillier around here, we've had a lot of silly the last few years in the midst of all the misery. I think we've reached peak silliness with this little thing going on. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, June 23rd installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman of NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson, and our host is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Well, first of all, happy summer. We finally made it. Doesn't feel like it with the wind howling outside, but here we are. Okay, first up, Twitter did something very interesting for a company that's claimed that it's now supporting free speech and defending it. Aaron Greenspan is?
Yes.
Yeah, he's kind of a gadfly, right? He has a website called Plain Sight where they look at all the litigation among corporations. So they're pretty hard on Tesla and Meta and General Motors in addition. Okay, so he just got suspended. He has 24,000 followers, and without any explanation, as far as I know, he just got, not only did his website get censored, he got censored on his personal site on Twitter, mainly because he appears to have been, he's pissed off Elon for years. They've always feuded, right? All of a sudden now he's deplatformed. There's no real explanation. I mean, was there a proximate cause of all this? Or did Elon just finally get sick of this guy?
Right. I mean, this was making news this week because, and this is something that Musk has had trouble with since he bought Twitter and said, this is going to be free speech, both for people who agree with me and who disagree with me. And then he's someone who disagreed with Musk, and now he and his platform are gone. And, it is, I'll give Musk this. It's tough to make a big statement like that, a big, bold statement like that, and not trip over yourself. But when you actually own the whole platform, it just looks really bad. And this is one of the many times that Musk has looked bad on his platform for going back against what he said, was important.
Yeah, it's really easy to defend free speech until somebody targets you. That's everyone says, oh, no, it's not bad speech. It's speech you really hate that you have to defend. Well, there's one thing harder than that. Speech you really hate and that attacks you.
Right. It's like Mike Tyson famously said, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And not to bring the whole wrestling, MMA, Zuckerberg Musk thing into this too early.
We're going to get to that next.
I figured. But yeah, this has been one of those knockdown, drag out fights. And it did make Musk look bad because he literally tweeted out, this will be a site for those who agree with me and those who disagree with me.
Did Greenspan say anything particularly ad hominem in recent days? Was there, like I said, once again, was there a cause of all this?
I don't know, other than his site and his sort of raison d'etre was to bring up, the lawsuits against various companies. And so that makes both Twitter and Tesla, as you said at the top, an easy target. And I'm afraid that's sort of what this was about.
So Elon just woke up this morning or a few mornings ago and said, that's it. This guy's gone.
I don't know. I mean, you could say, hey, this somehow violated one of the tenets, but did it violate free speech? I don't think so. And that's why Musk was getting criticized is, hey, you can dish out all of this stuff, much of it very offensive, but you can't take someone who's, casting a cocked eyebrow at your company and its business practices. That's hypocritical. And I think that's where the criticism comes from.
I notice that people, when they become tycoons, get a lot more prickly. In real life, you got to take this stuff. And when you're rich, you think to yourself, well, I don't need to take this anymore. I'm rich. So we'll see. Anyway, we'll get back to Elon in a minute because we got another whack job story about him. In the meantime, the Valley is doing so well right now, the stock market, that all the short sellers are getting killed. I don't know if you read this, but short sellers took a $120 billion hit on stocks such as, in order, $23.5 billion on Tesla, $22.4 billion on Apple, $16.5 on Microsoft, $11.4 on Nvidia. I would have thought that'd be the big one. And Amazon, $9.6 billion. Betting that all these great numbers and these jump ups in the stock were going to fade away pretty quickly. Well, they've lingered on, and these guys have been nailed. I mean, the normal amount's about $860 billion. That's what it was up at the beginning of the year, and now it's added another $120 billion just in the last few months on top of it all.
Yeah, to sort of play on the usual saying, in the case of some of these tech stocks that you mentioned, the bigger they come, the higher they fly. Every company you mentioned, with the exception of Tesla, and Tesla's close, is $1 trillion company. Meta may not be right now, but it also is close. And then you got Apple, which, when you're listening to this, may have crossed the $3 trillion, threshold. Microsoft is not too far from that. Amazon certainly $1 trillion, and so you've got the optimism of these short sellers that things will turn down. But so far they haven't, because a lot of the money right now that isn't going into things like housing is going into equities. And really, strange to say this, but the safe bets, the strong money, has been tech for a while now.
So, but short sellers are usually pretty smart. They base their shorting the stock on usually sometimes insider information. Are these companies defying gravity, and these short sellers were just, you think, premature? I mean, I think everybody figured that Nvidia was just floating on top. They've done this a couple times before, where they just rocket up and they settle back down. And the AI thing seemed like a bubble, and yet Nvidia is still way up there. I mean, were the short sellers premature, or are they? And these companies are defying gravity, or these are real solid gains, and maybe the boom in tech is coming back?
I don't know. I think they can all be true. I mean, in the case of Nvidia, yeah, it showed some real AI promise, and the money went into that. And there weren't many other companies that could say, we're actually gaining sales because of AI. And so there was this sort of fear of missing out play. And that's why a lot of money kept going into Nvidia, and is still going into that. But yeah, a lot of these companies, they soar and then they come back down a bit. I mean, Apple hit an all-time high as you and I speak today, and that brought it within a hair's breadth of $3 trillion. And that's a super high level, but no one's going to look at Apple and say, well, this is a badly run company. Short sellers should be jumping all over this. I think there's just this expectation that once you get that high, things do get frothy, right? They do feel like a bubble, and they, eventually do come down. But we've seen an impressive run, especially with some of these software and chip companies. And they're bringing a lot of the smaller companies along with them. And who knows how long it will last. And if AI will get, much like the .com craze, people will say, okay, we're going to stop buying until you show some actual profits with this stuff. And that's probably going to happen sometime soon as well.
Okay. Meanwhile, by the way, do you have an Amazon Prime account?
I myself, yes, I do.
Yeah, so do I. And I haven't tried to quit lately, but apparently the FTC has a new lawsuit against Amazon saying that the retail giant duped consumers into joining as Prime subscribers. I kind of think that I suddenly discovered I was a Prime subscriber, not really doing anything. So I can go along with that. But apparently they make it really difficult to quit.
Yeah, and it makes me want to try just to see, but I remember signing up.
It's $139 a year, $14.99 a month. You get free ship.
Right. And it's one of those things where when you do, if you don't have Prime, what the lawsuit I think says is when you don't have Prime and you're in the process of buying something, it makes it perhaps less than honest to say, hey, click here and we'll just, do that. You remember when Wells Fargo was signing people up without really telling them what they were signing up for. That's sort of the charge here. But
remember that famous meme of the guy try to quit Comcast?
Yes.
And then he went through this whole tree of questions. They never actually let him quit. That's all he wanted to do.
Yeah, believe me, as a Comcast employee, I remember that one. But I do remember signing up for Amazon. And as a parent of young children, I remember we were just getting so many Amazon things, it wasn't even funny. And I thought, free shipping would really save some money. And at some point, I think people are just so used to that now. They're not even aware necessarily, like you say, that they're Amazon Prime shippers, or Amazon Prime members. So everyone who is or isn't, maybe take a look, see if it's worth it for you. Trust me, there are some conveniences and money savings to it. But if you don't need it, that does add up. And you can still get stuff delivered to you in a quick manner without being a Prime member.
Okay, well, I may give it a try, but I buy so much stuff on Amazon now. It's hard to believe I would lose money on that, $140 a year. Try doing it through the post office.
Right.
See how much that costs. Okay. The United States government, obviously with very deep pockets, just gave a conditional $9.2 billion loan to Ford Motor Company to build 3 battery factories. It seems like Ford is more in the news about batteries than the battery companies are right now. They said Ford seems to be making a move, and a big one, and making a really deep commitment to EVs. Battery companies seem right now to be kind of pulling back because they're facing some structural problems, like where are you going to get the lithium in that kind of volume? We talked about this a year ago. Recycling is an enormous challenge that has not been solved for batteries. So obviously, part of the motive for the government to give this, they said $9.2 billion loan is to catch up with China. I've been watching a lot of coverage on China. Their international trade has collapsed because of these concerns about their behavior and, their warmongering with Taiwan and all that. Is this another step in America's let's not get dependent upon China for anything important technology-wise?
Possibly. And look, this is not the first time the government has made a big investment in anything electric. I mean, Tesla got off the ground because of it. And now they're looking at some of the more, newcomers to an extent. Tesla's been in the game now for more than a decade. Ford and GM are really starting to get serious about it. And all 3 of those companies, by the way, American. So why not? But I think it also points to, the cars are one thing and they're what we drive. And that's great. But there's a lot of infrastructure. We've talked in the recent past about the charging concerns and getting enough electricity from the grid. And I think the batteries are also going to really come into play, whether the big companies themselves, and you see, Tesla building battery factories and all that, or the smaller actual battery companies themselves, whether it's Panasonic or another one. We've seen some of these battery companies sprout out in Silicon Valley, just like we've seen charging companies. And remember in the dot-com boom, eventually it wasn't just the actual physical computer companies that were making money. It was the pick and shovel guys like Cisco and Sun. And I think that's going to be really important in the years ahead as we transition to more and more EVs on the road.
Yeah, well, Ford seems to be trying to vertically integrate or get all the ducks in a row now, from making the batteries down to the charging. Can we expect GM to open a battery plant too anytime soon, you think?
Right. I wouldn't be surprised. They'll either do it themselves or buy a company or work with someone. I think with Tesla, the partner has been Panasonic for a long time. And again, with any big company that really needs to do something to catch up, either with its competitors or China, you're going to see them maybe buy battery companies or try to develop their own. But you may also see, as we're starting to see with the charging networks, some sort of, coming together on perhaps a standard where we can say, hey, these batteries are the ones that give us the most range. Let's all invest in this, and then distinguish ourselves by the cars we make. Who knows?
Well, I mean, 3 years from now, Ford expects to produce as many as 2 million EVs, which I believe is about the number of F-150s it sells each year. I mean, that's a serious number. And they're going in with both feet. You think they can pull this off with the obstacles that sit in the way out there, not necessarily in their control?
I think they can, but I think there are some factors. Look, they're slow off the jump when it comes to manufacturing. They're way behind Tesla. They're going to face a lot of competition. That's good. We should all have many EVs to choose from. But really, they've got the manufacturing for it because they do crank out millions of cars a year, right? And
what they did.
Right.
And so, 3, yes.
Right. But they've been slow in transitioning to a whole bunch of EVs and even fulfilling the orders that the F-150 EV truck people want, and they have to catch up. And that's pretty much the mantra that I think for Ford and GM is we have to catch up to the EV companies that are beating us, a la Tesla, Nissan, to a smaller extent, Rivian, but they're out there. And so for us, the consumer, competition is great. I want to see prices come down. I want to see more choices. But if you're one of these companies that's faced with a mandate of cranking out EVs, you really have to get on the stick because you're behind.
Have you heard much from Rivian lately? I seem to notice a Rivian truck every other day here in the heart of Silicon Valley. They must be doing pretty good.
They are doing pretty good. But then again, saying that you see them in Silicon Valley doesn't mean they're all over the country yet. They're a little slower.
One guy that just gets around.
Well, no, they have a couple models. You do see them out in the wild.
Well, it's the distinctive headlights. That's how you spot the things.
Right. I just think that they need to make more and sell more. Look at their stock price. It's way down from where it was because the initial excitement was, whoa, they're going to take on, the Teslas of the world. And they did get a jump on the Cybertruck. And that should have been more significant, but investors are still unsure, partially because they're in kind of a niche market. My guess, if I had to make a guess, is that at some point Rivian gets bought.
I think so too.
Yeah, they've proven that they can make good trucks that people really like. They've got a good range. But as a solid standalone individual company, I don't know. At some point, I think we'll see some EV consolidation.
No, I think that we're just repeating the 1920s, that you buy Buick, you buy Oldsmobile, you put them all together and you make General Motors. I could see Rivian getting picked up by a company that wants to get in the pickup truck business. That's a quick way to do it. And the founders of Rivian get paid off, and the big automobile company has the ability to scale that technology and that manufacturing to meet a large demand.
Right. I mean, everyone expected Tesla's truck unveiling to look more like, I think, the Rivian than the Cybertruck. So no matter how many Cybertrucks they sell, there's still going to be a lot of truck owners that are like, all right, but that's kind of crazy looking. I want to buy a truck that looks more like a truck. And
it looks like my kid's Transformer model. Yeah.
Right. We played a lot of video games in the 80s and 90s that looked like that Cybertruck. Right. So Rivian makes an attractive, I think, takeover target at some point, but there's still a lot to settle in this EV world, not to mention, like you said, the actual infrastructure of chargers and batteries and all that stuff.
Okay, and finally, you know this is coming, the weirdest story of the week. Okay, I don't even know how to explain this. According to UFC President Dana White, it's hard to do. Well, okay. He's saying that it's on, that Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg are going to have a cage match in the octagon. I guess broadcast globally. Is this just a PR story? Is this just a joke? I mean,
we can only hope.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
You know, it's all this has been coming out. You watched, you know, Jeff Bezos turned into kind of looked like a steroided beast with no neck over, you know, this mousy little nerd guy. Now he looks like, you know, a UFC boxer. Okay. Zuckerberg, the last few weeks, all of a sudden it's coming out. You see him water skiing. You hear he runs some kind of marathon or something, and he's buffing up. Elon looks a little doughy still, but I've stood next to Elon. He's taller than me, and I'm 6'1", so he's a big guy. Are they really seriously thinking about doing it? I mean, the shareholders must be going, what the hell else are these guys? What next? What are they going to drop on us now?
Yeah, I mean, you're right about the shareholder thing. I don't know. I mean, if you've watched over the last even 24 hours where sort of one, you know, veiled threat gets done and then Musk will say, all right, name the place. And, you know, Musk can't back down because he's got an enormous ego. Zuckerberg is not going to back down because he's the guy that got picked on all the time and is now like really into martial arts. And that's why guys that get picked on get into martial arts, so that they can later in life show the bullies a thing or two.
Yeah, I think
this is not.
I think Elon had a better high school experience than Mark did.
Perhaps so, but both have talked about kind of being bullied, and so now they're both, you know, at least strong financially. I know that Zuckerberg is strong in the martial arts world. Musk, that's my surprise, is that he's not saying, look, I'm older than you. I'm a father of like, I don't know, 6 or 8 already. My goal in life is not to fight people who are stronger and faster and younger than me. And that's why I would fear for him, even though he's bigger. I think, I can't believe we're actually analyzing this. All right, but I think Zuckerberg has yeah, all of a sudden we're
40-inch reach, you know.
All of a sudden we're Cosell and Jim Lampley having this, you know, and Sugar Ray Leonard actually discussing this. But anyway, you know, so this major.
I don't even know, how would you ensure this?
Right. I'm sure each of them.
One of them goes in there and turns out to be Rocky Marciano and drops the other, you know, and breaks his jaw or gives him brain damage. How do you ensure it? This is both men are billionaires.
Right. I mean, again, I can't believe we're talking about this, but yeah, if Zuckerberg does real damage to Musk, is he both boastful but also feeling bad because he's then hurt our, you know, space program? Yeah. So I don't know. I would expect that this peters out at some point and they decide, let's just make a big donation to charity and call it good. But if they do get in the ring, goodness gracious, the attention that will get is going to be bananas.
Okay. You know, it just sounds like they're just imitating, you know, 1960s wrestlers, you know, with the big talk, you know, what I'm gorgeous, George, you know. We'll see. But just when you think things can't get sillier around here, we've had a lot of silly the last few years in the midst of all the misery. I think we've reached peak silliness with this little thing going on.
I would agree with you, except I would say give it another week and something sillier is going to happen. It's bound to.
Well, here's the thing. If this actually comes true, guess who's probably going to get assigned to go cover the
yes.
Water, pal.
That's probably true.
You thought Elizabeth Holmes was a circus. That trial. Wait till you step. You're sitting next to the octagon. Watch these two guys in tights going at each other.
From the courthouse to the octagon. We'll do it.
Okay, that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. I always say that. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the beginning of summer and the end of school, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.